and then phrased it in different ways and kind of focused on different things. So I didn't have like one that I was like, this is the one, but I'll just pick one and read it if that's okay. So this one, I think this is the last one I wrote. I quite liked it because I think I kind of got where I was going with it. So, I am the sunrise, a fresh start to inspire and uplift. Just simple.
I love that.
It doesn't quite fit the way that it was written in the thing, but I kind of felt like it did both the elements that it needed.
And the words aren't, you know, stuck in stone. So actually, I think I'd rather you, like we do with the allies, add an ally or change a word to make it flow and feel like it's something that it should feel like it rolls off the tongue. And that's why actually saying it out loud to a group of people feels a bit intimidating, but it's a really important part of it, because actually it should feel like you've just always said, like, you know, there's an element of like just saying something the way that you've like, I've kind of said that before. It feels so natural that like it just, rather than you kind of getting tongue tied, you know. And I think, again, this is just a really nice way for you to kind of explore that a bit more, really. And what would your inner child or your child, Yasmin, say about that life purpose statement, do you think, Yasmin? Putting you on the spot here.
So it's funny, some of my other ones, my same play on the sunrise, but the like a different way it's written. So one of them was brighten your day, and that would be more my inner child, if that makes sense. But the wording and phrasing, probably not so much with this one, with inspire, but I guess uplift, maybe my inner child definitely would. And again, some of my other ones were would be a bit more linked to my leader within, with the like self-care and looking after, but it's kind of like a bit broad rather than specific. But kind of in a
no, but I like that they all have different almost versions of it, you know, depending on who you're asking, like who's present in the room. And, you know, I think that that's almost okay if that's interchangeable almost, because they all have a place. So I think, it doesn't have to look a certain way. It doesn't have to be one. Maybe they all have a presence in some way, and we can kind of use them interchangeably.
I like that, because it wasn't that I didn't like the others. It just
Perfect. Thank you for sharing. And feel free to kind of share, but you know, if you guys want to just feedback to each other on what you're saying, please feel free just to jump in. And anyone else want to share?
Yeah, so a bit the same like you, Yasmin. I wrote 3 drafts, and they all, the metaphor is always the hand.
Yeah.
And earlier today, I mean, I've been considering this for a couple of weeks, and my son came home today, and I asked him the question, who am I when I walk in the room, and what vibe do I bring? And you know, he was sort of clever enough to think it through, because my husband he couldn't get the language. He just couldn't get it. He didn't really understand. But my son said, warmth. There's a warmth, Mum, and there's love. And I thought, right, I've got to incorporate that somehow in my impact statement.
That's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, it really was. So the first one I drafted says, I am the devoted hand that will touch you with love and kindness, protect you and warm your heart. Where there is uncertainty, that same hand will guide you to follow the right pathway.
Wow.
So this for me is all around the poem that I wrote and I read at my mum's funeral. I shared it with Molly 2 weeks ago. And she said, you know, think of the hand. And she said, some of the words that you said, you know, write the words on each finger. And somehow I've just sort of pulled that together. And I will use this, if that is the final version, I'm not really sure, but I know that I can use it on both a professional level, which is where naturally I feel my strength is, but on a personal level is all the feedback from my family and my friends that will say those sorts of things. But I'd love to get something about inspiration within the statement as well. But like you said, Natalie, it's sort of got to roll off the tongue, and I don't know that I want to make it too wordy. I liked yours, Yasmin. It was very simple.
Yeah. And it's not to say that there might be something around inspiration that comes through really strongly in a month or 3 months or 6 months, and you want to change it and add that word in. But right now, it's kind of going with what feels right now. But it will absolutely change as you change. So it's allowing it to have the freedom to change with you, rather than feel like you need to kind of know or kind of have that finalized now, really.
Mm.
You know, and thank you for mentioning the different environments, because I think it's giving you the freedom to have different ones if you want, because actually a lot of us have different personalities or masks we wear in different environments, and I think this is about having some kind of neutral element that ties us all together in authenticity to all of the environments. But actually that isn't going to happen overnight. It's not suddenly be able to show up authentically in every single situation because of all the conditioning and the triggers that are present there. So it might be that initially we break that down and they're slightly different. And then in time, as you become clearer, they probably will merge into the same one.
Karen, it was beautiful. I loved it so much.
Yeah, it gave me goosebumps, Karen.
Wow, thank you. And I'm sort of, I'm thinking about my future career. You know, things are going to change in the next 3 months. And as an individual, especially from a professional point of view, everyone might not see that in me, but it soon becomes apparent, and it's just like a natural way of coaching or nurturing people or helping them, show them, you know, maybe a better way or the right path to follow.
Yeah.
So I feel it's going to be really prevalent in, you know, in the months ahead, for sure. Absolutely. And, you know, getting back into, you know, the world outside of the pandemic, you know, re-engaging with friends. And of course I've always been there throughout because of technology today, and just being able to pick up the phone and, you know, making an excuse to go for a walk with a friend. But it's going to be great to sort of get back to being in that network of friends and just
being more you than you've ever been. I think this is what the beauty of doing this now is that we almost have this opportunity to recreate ourselves to who we've always been, because actually we've had a bit of a break, a pause moment where we've like gone back and we've reevaluated, well, who is it that I really am now? And actually that's such a nice foundation to then go into the world opening up and be really strong on that, and, you know, really test that a bit with then who do I feel good around, like who really embraces this element of me, who can support me in playing out my life purpose, you know, because actually that reflection is so powerful, because actually we might have not had that chance if we'd not have had this year. And I think coming out of this program then with May and then everything that's going to come through the summer, your life purpose is a tool then that you can have in your back pocket to then check in, challenge and say, yeah, am I on the right path here? You know, I think that's the timing's quite nice with that. I think 'cause you've almost got a bit of grounding to then like help keep you on that kind of straight and narrow.
Yeah. And I just feel it very rewarding and very satisfying. And I guess the past year, with circumstances as they have been, has not allowed me to sort of really embrace that as much as I wanted to. And I'm so looking forward to not influencing others, but like inspiring others. That's why I want that word in there somehow, I think, but I'm not really sure. So yeah, that's where I am anyway.
Thank you so much for sharing. And honestly, like, wow.
Right.
Yeah, I like that it's such an awesome tool on both those levels. And I think you've got a really nice opportunity through the change of role too, to actually kind of question this. And then almost like I said to you, Karen, in our one-to-one, it's almost like writing your job description with this at the center of it almost, you know. And I know Rachel and Carolyn, we talked about this with the Stay Nimble stuff as well. It's almost kind of, when you're really strong on this, it becomes you're choosing, you know, and you're kind of then playing out kind of that reality, but taking kind of control with that. And it's a very different dynamic, isn't it, I think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice.
Thank you for sharing. Who wants to go next?
I go next.
Yeah, go for it.
So I feel like I say this every week, but I struggled with this because again, this is being creative, and I'm just really not very good at that sort of thing. So I've been writing down words all week that came into my head and trying to fit things, and I'm still not really sure. None of mine are the same theme like Yasmin's and Karen's. Mine are all a bit all over the place still, so it's still a big work in progress for me. But I think the one that I like the most at the moment is I am the first spring flower that brings joy and hope.
I love that. And I love the way you said that, Georgie. Like, I'm just being a mirror here, but actually how you say something does tell us a lot. And I think you did, even though you went in and said, you said that with very strong assurance, and I think that shows that you know more than you probably think, just because of the way that you voiced that.
Yeah, but then when I kind of look back on my my inner child, that's far too serious for my inner child. It would be
That's just a lens though, isn't it? Right? Like, it's just the perspective. It's just another tool to help us see that in a different way. It doesn't, and that's why those questions, are quite useful to ask. What would my first mate say about this? What would my partner, parent, mum, dad? It's just a different lens. It's not about it being wrong or right, because actually your inner child has something to say, but actually it doesn't mean that has to be what you hear, because actually this is about taking you forward, and your inner child, maybe that was kind of keeping you in that inner child moment, so actually don't get attached too much to that. It's just a different way to access some kind of intuition around it, really.
Yeah, but I asked, like Karen, I asked my mum and my sister and some of my friends and about what enters the room when I do, and they all said exactly the same, was a warmth, but also like a fun energy. I don't know if a spring flower captures that fun element. That's why when I messaged you, Natalie, about something like a warm fuzzy smile, not like a really stupid giggly smile, but like just an inner smile. That's what I'm trying to find as my metaphor, but nothing has sort of come out of me yet.
And you will probably find that, again, when you're really quiet in the mind, that you'll just see something, an image or a word, and you'll be able to access it. But actually, you're probably not meant to see it yet. So it's part of the fact that this is unfolding absolutely as it's meant to. And actually, there'll be a point where you're like, yeah, I've got it, and it's clicked. But actually, that's okay, because this is a stepping stone process. So just know what you're looking for. And actually you'll get that sign when the time's right, and then replace it. But right now, that's a really good kind of place to be, isn't it? Having that formed for the first time, because that's something that you've not ever done. Like, a few people in the room who have done this before. It's quite a big task that I'm giving you here, which is why I wanted to frame it with the whole, tweaking element of the fact that I don't want us to feel pressure around this being perfect, because it's not how life is not like that. And what would your leader within say about that, Georgie, would you say?
She would completely agree with that, I think.
Yeah.
My leader within, that's the kind of energy she has, the warm joy. Yeah, that would be something she would say.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Even though it's maybe not the end one, I love that as well. I love how different they all are. It's so nice, because when you're doing yours, you kind of have like a very specific route, or maybe you don't, but that, for me, I had like I had this path. So it's really nice to kind of hear these all over here, because my head was so set on one direction. So it's really nice. I loved it. I thought it was beautiful.
Thank you.
I think that's why it's powerful to hear each other say these, because actually it can give you a different perspective, because we all get kind of stuck in our heads with this. I remember the first time I did mine, like, I'm quite happy with mine now, I'm being the lighthouse that guides you home. But initially I was like, my metaphor was very much about like being a really cheeky monkey. Initially was my metaphor, because there was something quite like really playful. Like my Jack Russell was quite important early on, because I was kind of really lacking that kind of fun, free element, and it was very much about that cheeky monkey initially, but then it changed into that lighthouse. And my first version, I didn't, and I remember like speaking it out loud and not feeling like it was right, but actually it wasn't meant to be then, because there was this process to go through in getting to where we were going. So I think that's important for me to say as well, that I suddenly didn't just know mine either. It took kind of a process of you kind of letting a few seeds plant, you know, around this, really, and just giving yourself some space to not think about it, actually. I know that's quite like counterproductive, really, but actually it's in those moments when you're not working on this that probably is when actually you'll get the clarity. Anyone else want to share? And if you guys don't, I don't want to put you completely in pressure, because when we go into the breakout rooms, you will be able to share. So if you want to just share in the small groups, that's absolutely fine. So I know, Geeta, you've don't know if you've done this bit of the work yet, have you? No.
I haven't done it yet, but it's really lovely to listen to everyone else's at the moment. So thank you.
Eurasia, Carolyn, do you two want to share? It's completely up to you. I know you've done this before, but I know, Eurasia, you said a little bit about how it's changed. It's again something, this will be part of your journey from now on, really. So it's, like this time next year, it'll be so fascinating to kind of hear what that sounds like, or how that's changed as you have as well. And I think that's a really nice model to have seen Carolyn and Eurasia have done it once before as well, and actually the fact that that's changed as they have too.
I'm happy to share both, to be fair. So what it was and how it's changed from the initial to now. So the smile was always my metaphor. And initially I was like, I'm the smile that ignites each individual with the power to believe in and live out their best life. And that was really powerful. I felt it was really masculine. There was something very quite like strong and quite, and then after thinking about it long and hard and really playing around with the words, and I did 3 drafts as well, like everyone else. And I didn't think I was going to do that, but I started like playing with the word smile. Mm-hmm. And all 3 drafts are very different to the final one. Mm-hmm. So I came up with, I'm the promising smile that beams beautiful possibilities for people to achieve in life. Mm-hmm. Because I just thought that encompasses everything that I've been leading up to this point and onwards. I felt that's what I was doing after I set my first life purpose. I wasn't igniting anything. I was actually just being the person who's kind of giving that support or that helping hand or that sort of.
Yeah, the promise is such a powerful word, isn't it? When you added that in, I really liked that, because it's there's something very, it's just a word that carries so much power and meaning, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's very soft as well now, and I felt like that feminine energy was coming out, and if I reflected back to like being a child, if that was me, like that years ago, that's exactly what I would have wanted as a child, like just that comfort to know
that's
I'm
so
okay, like, yeah.
So you're like the promising child smile for your inner child.
Yeah.
So powerful, isn't it? Of like, if they could have just looked at you in that moment where they were feeling like, threatened or unsafe or scared, to then see you in the corner of your eye smiling, like that's what you would have needed. Because this is about you as adults giving your inner child what you always needed, as well. And there's that lovely interplay between how you can be there for your inner child every single day, which is actually really, really nice that that's come through like that, hasn't it? Amazing. Thank you for sharing. Carolyn, do you want to share, or you don't have to? Because I know you mentioned a bit about the mirror, didn't you, initially today? I really liked that. I don't know if it sat with you though. Did you like that phrase, the metaphor?
Well, yeah, I sort of liked it too. I don't know. It's even though we did it before, I still really struggled. So earlier I sent you the 3. So I think the one of the ones I sent, I liked the most was I'm the signpost that inspires you to follow a new path. But then we were saying about the mirror. So
yeah, I think
I don't know. Just now I wrote I'm the mirror that reflects elements you couldn't see before. Or
there's something really powerful about that mirror. It kept coming up for me when you said mirror. I was just like, that's it, that's the one. I just felt like it was the right word, but that's just my perspective. You don't have to own that. Yeah, and I think it comes back to, doesn't it, really kind of coming back to those scenarios that you asked the 2 weeks ago around actually kind of like, you know, when I'm tingling from head to toe, you know, what was I doing, where was I, you know, all try and remember those questions, because these words have a deeper meaning around kind of like what your impact is and how you want to leave a kind of a mark on the world. So it's just making sure that you're able to then like read that back and just check and challenge it really from there. Awesome. Okay, what we're going to do is go into some breakout rooms for probably 5-10 minutes and talk a little bit now around purpose into action. So I think you guys saw my video on this, but it's a really important part. And I think I like talking about habits when I talk about this, because actually it is about daily habits. It is about being able to look back on a week and say, what action did I do, or like what conversation did I have when I was in that energy, in alignment or on purpose. And I think sometimes breaking it down like that helps us understand that we're already doing it actually, because there are times when you just do this in your sleep and you don't even realize consciously, because it's just part of your program, it's part of who you are. And I think, again, this is pulling it out of the subconscious to realize I've been doing it all along. Like, oh my God, like, you know, and I think it's one of those, it's same for me with coaching. Weirdly, I was always, whether my friends actually wanted me to give them advice, I just gave advice to everyone growing up. And then whether people wanted it or not, it was like, oh, you know, I'm going to just help you, or, you know, I'm just going to help you and guide you. And, you know, whether that was actually landing, I don't know, but I was doing it in kind of a different outlet, if that makes sense. So I think sometimes we can have those moments where we're like, okay, maybe I've been doing that, but it was just a slightly different action or behavior that was attached. So we're going to spend a bit of time just exploring firstly one thing, you know, maybe kind of one time in the last week where we felt like maybe we were on purpose. And then using kind of your partner in this instance to kind of break that down in terms of kind of like a daily habit, you know, because actually we're kind of almost creating sustainable change here through habits. And actually sometimes we have to treat it as a habit, in if we don't actually kind of like make time for it almost, or think about it as something we do regularly, then actually it gets lost in kind of all the kind of merge of just us all always going back to kind of how we've always been. So I hope that lands in terms of how I'm kind of moving us on to breaking that down and thinking about how we kind of pull this out in our daily lives. Because the worry is, and I think sometimes this is the risk of doing the inner work, is actually how does it then come through into outer work in terms of our day-to-day lives. So we're going to come back to the group and then just share one thing that one way that we think that we might be able to kind of hold ourselves to account with regards to our purpose. It might be an environment that you think, actually, yeah, I feel like that's an environment that I'm going to be able to do this more. It might be a certain type of person you're going to be around that you feel like you actually might be able to be on purpose a bit more. But it's thinking a little bit about those daily tasks, those little words you say, those little tiny things that we're doing that maybe aren't maybe in our conscious awareness at the moment. Does anyone have any kind of thoughts on that? An issue from me saying it? You know, there's a few nods around like you're already doing it, but anything that you guys are thinking, yeah, actually that's something I did or I'm doing already that I maybe didn't necessarily realize was my purpose playing out into action?
Can you just give an example for an action? Because for me, I find it really difficult to think of an action.
Yeah, so if, say, for example, if Eurasia's smile example, so one action might be you literally going on a dog walk every single day with your dog and just smiling to one other person and actually locking eyes and actually sharing a smile and then seeing them smile. That might be one way every day that actually you are kind of holding yourself rooted to that purpose and actually acting on that. So Karen's one around being that helping hand. It might be asking one person every day, are you okay? You know, and actually asking and waiting for the answer, you know? So it's actually kind of how you can build that into a daily routine, that it just becomes as normal as you kind of getting a glass of water when you wake up or brushing your teeth. And some of this stuff we're already doing, but we have to bring it into our conscious awareness to kind of then help it then shape our lives moving forward. And that's the difference there. Any thoughts from anyone on like things you might be doing already that align, or is this quite tricky? And again, it's the first time I'm doing this in this scenario, so again, it's really good to get your feedback on it.
So Natalie, I'm completely that person. I smile at everybody on a dog walk and try and talk to everybody. So I 100% do that.
And with your and with kind of your purpose statement, is that smile something that you think is lining up to giving that joy in the way that your purpose would, or is it slightly a different feeling that it brings about? Because it might be that the smile for you actually is the action, even though you've not got smile in your life purpose statement.
So I think, I mean, for me, when somebody smiles at me, it gives me that warm, fuzzy feeling. So I hope that that's what other people are getting from my smile.
Yeah. So the smile for you is probably a really, really good action for you to have, that actually that becomes your daily reminder almost. Like, and when you get to bed, looking back on the day, like, who did I make smile today? Who did I notice smile today? You know, because that's actually looking back on the day and then almost becoming a bit of a kind of reflective practice around those days when you maybe didn't smile or didn't see anyone or make anyone smile. You maybe then realize, hang on, I need to make someone smile again tomorrow. So you're then back on purpose, because this is almost a compass, isn't it, of like the days when we're off purpose. It's then a tiny little thing that we can do to bring us back into alignment, you know, and it becomes, that's how it becomes useful as an action.
When you were talking about the actions, I don't, like, there's definitely some ways that I do things, but thinking about specific action will be tricky. And then the thing that came into my mind is when I do my gratitude journal, which I do really often, not every night, but I totally could do it every night, is I don't ever do any actions from me. It's kind of like grateful for my life and the things that have affected me, but never anything that I have done. So I could definitely incorporate my inspire and uplift into my gratitude, in that today I inspired, or today I helped uplift, whatever it is. That can really be a gratitude for the day. It's a nice way to hold myself accountable in a way that I haven't ever done before.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what this is about. It's finding your way, because actually we're all so different. We all have our different evening, morning routines, and we all have different structures. And some of us like structure, some of us don't. And some of us, it might be a bit more fluid. It might be about having room to be spontaneous, you know. I think it's about really kind of thinking about what you're already doing when you feel good, because actually some of those hints and tips are already there. We're doing it, but it's subconscious. And this is about bringing it up to the conscious so that we can then honor it and then use it even more. So we're going to spend a bit of time just using each other around this. So sharing your statements with that one other person, but also kind of using each other to put some kind of accountability in around this, because actually accountability is the bit that shifts it into action. Because without accountability, it becomes a really nice sentence. But then they ask the question about, Yasmin, tell me a time this week that you've been on purpose. That's the difference. This is about moving it into a point where you can tell me a time that you weren't and then you were, and you can look at those scenarios and see the difference in those scenarios. Because at this time I wasn't on purpose because the people I was around didn't make me feel good. At this scenario, I was not doing something I loved in my day job, and that's why I wasn't on purpose. So do you see how it's almost a really, it's a great tool, because then it guides you, but without getting into the action, it's quite hard to use it. Perfect. Right, I'm going to be dipping it in and out again. I'm going to just let it do its thing, because it always seems to do it right. So I'm just going to let it get on with it. And I will give you guys, probably about 5-6 minutes. I will pop some questions just in the broadcast, but feel free to be quite fluid with this. And if you still want to do some stuff around your purpose statement and play that out a bit and get some feedback, please do. But I'd love you to come back to the room with just one thing around action, kind of one daily action that you think you might want to test out this week. Okay. So I'm going to do 3 rooms, and then yes, off you go.
You know, I find it so difficult to build a sentence.
Sorry guys, you're together again. I didn't mean for you to be together again, but anyway.
Clearly the universe wants us to continue our conversation about impact statements. That's why it's brought us back together again. It's like, you started the work together, you're going to finish the work together. I was just saying how I love the mirror.
I do as well.
And the reason why I loved it so much is I thought about the mirror in my impact statement at a point as well. So I don't know, I just feel like it's a sign. It's like, yeah.
I really liked that, because of Carolyn, you talk a lot about offering a different way or a different perspective. And I think the mirror is such a good way of doing that, because actually we're all mirrors for each other every single day. So like, my sister's really good at doing this to me when I'm really struggling with something. She says, well, you know, that situation's a mirror, what's it teaching you? And it's really annoying to hear that sometimes, because you're like, I just want to be angry. But it is like, every situation is a mirror, is telling you something. And if we could all learn from that, then how much learning, you know, is available to us from there. So it has to sit with you. But I think from what you said,
I like the mirror as well. I find it so difficult to build a sentence. That sounds really stupid, but
then, you know, it's one of those things that it is quite alien though for us as adults to use a metaphor and kind of think in this way. So don't be too hard on yourself with that. Yeah, like I said, it's important that it's tweakable, and it's meant to be tweaked. So it's about it being comfortable for now, and actually.
Yeah, you know where the mirror comes from. Last week, well, not last week, 2 weeks ago, I think I was in the room with Yasmin, and we were talking, and I was reading my statement from last time, and I said to her, oh, it's something about a mirror. And I was like, oh, okay, so maybe that's better than what I had before. But then still, I couldn't build a sentence around it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I need to have a bit more of a think.
Yeah, and absolutely use kind of those allies, use the leader within, use the childhood essence stuff around getting a few perspectives, and maybe like share it with a family member or someone, and kind of like say, you know, this is something I put together around my life purpose statement. What do you think? Because actually even they're using them as a mirror, you know, and getting their perspective, because actually that might be what you need to do now, almost share it with a few people, and then to get some kind of thoughts that will help you move one step further. But also I'd say this content, not all of it will resonate. So actually don't get too stuck if it's not resonating. Kind of take the learning.
But you know, I think it's a nice thing to have a sentence that reflects in a way who you are. So I do like the idea of it.
And talk to me about one time that you maybe have been that mirror for someone, or a situation that maybe you'd like to act in that way, because this is about how we then move it over into action.
But I think in a way you do it all the time, don't you? When
that's beautiful in itself. That's beautiful in itself.
It's just about more than the weather, basically. I think it's about, I mean, that sounds really silly, but I think it's about active listening, just really being present and hearing what they're saying, and hearing also what's said unconsciously. And then you're able to reflect stuff back that they didn't realize they knew already. So, and then it can like influence a lot of their thinking and what they want to do, because suddenly they realize bits they didn't realize before.
Yeah, there's so much beauty in what you've just said.
Yeah, can I just add to that? So I actually said this to Natalie the last time we had a chat, me and you. I said more about energy that you give, and I said, oh, I'm so glad I had Carolyn at the end, because she's got such a calming energy and I really needed that. So it's not just about the active listening and how you talk, it's your energy that you offer as well. And I think that's the power
Calming the room.
also so zen, and like I can get this like you're just on cue with like when to laugh, when to be calm, when
It's
to be
so natural almost, and like maybe it's something around almost feeling like that mirror allows other people to feel at home or calm, or there's something really still in that. There's a stillness there that I think that I pick up on as well, which is good feedback, because this is what it's all about. Eurasia's being a mirror for you.
Well, what my mom was, I was discussing it with my mom what the purpose is, and she was like, well, in the end, this is what you always need people to do to you too. So it's not always doing it for other people, it's doing it for yourself too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is really powerful with this one for you, because your purpose statement isn't just about what other people are doing for you. It's about what you're needing from other people. So it's actually got that two perspectives to it, because actually a lot of this is about how do I want to change the world. This is actually giving people permission to be a constant mirror for you too, so that you can go and learn and grow. And I think that double-sided piece around that is quite nice.
Let's move on to Eurasia.
I'll leave you guys anyway. I'll see you shortly.
I was gonna say, I like how your mum was
A little bit more confidence.
Yeah.
Hi, Natalie.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just saying to Geeta that this part of the journey really is a true culmination of everything that we've been doing up until now. And I was just being honest with Geeta to say that some of the language and the way of, creative thinking was way outside of my, not comfort zone, but I really had to stop, think, dig deep, dig deeper, and I felt I've learned a lot through that. But if I were to do the whole exercise again, I guess there would be the experience and potentially a bit more confidence in everything that I've done over the past few weeks. But my impact statement I didn't struggle with it. There were lots of words. I think it was it, I can't remember who said in the group now, they were writing down lots of different words, and those were going around in my head all of the time, and eventually I just sort of come together and just thought, that's it. Beyond the professional, I'm using my purpose subconsciously in a professional and personal way. But I just said to Geeta, I want to take that, I want to go beyond, I want to go further. I've been researching different areas where I can volunteer and be on purpose. Yeah. And there's lots of different ways you can do that, sport and education, crisis, poverty, health and social care. But the one that resonates with me most is community. So I really want to try and find something, perhaps the local community, and really, I don't know, be the helping hand.
Amazing. And that's enough at the moment to like that's your commitment almost, that you're going to look out, because actually you're manifesting that, putting it into the universe. Like you're looking out for the right opportunity. You're looking out, be really clear and specific about the fact that you're looking out for an opportunity to volunteer to be that helping hand. And actually that opportunity will present itself, but it won't unless we're really clear. So a lot of what we're doing here is like putting it out there to then receive, and I think that in itself is a really big, you don't have to know the exact detail around it, but you're kind of asking the universe to kind of give you a little bit of a a steer now. An opportunity will just arise that you'll think,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because I was saying, even though it's a good way that you know that that's the road you're going to come along, and everything will come clear after that. And I definitely believe the universe will bring it to you, the right opportunity, and you'll know it's right. And it just gave me a really lovely feeling to listen to that. So I think everything sounds amazing, and it's so nice to be a part of the journey to hear that as well.
it is so special.
All those changes. Yeah, it's quite lovely.
No, thank you. But Geeta, like I say, if for whatever outside influences have, prevented you from doing the exercise, I would say I found it hard to sort of dig deep in that creative thinking, but all of what we've done up until now, when you start reflecting on all of that, I just look back at my journal and all the prompts and everything is there. It's just,
yeah. And Geeta, you're not meant to know it right. You're not meant to know it right now. This is unfolding at the right speed for you, and actually, you'll get there when you're meant to get there. So
yeah, I take comfort in that.
It's your own timeline. I think that's why I find it quite hard to do this journey on a 12-week piece, because actually that's why I always say to people, like, we're never going to finish this work, even though we say goodbye. Actually, like, you've just opened Pandora's box, and you've kind of got to be willing to go back there and redo stuff. And I think that's why I think that if I could, I would structure it in a lot more fluid way. But it's it's all learning, isn't it? Really understanding what that right duration is initially. And I think the link back to habits is quite a hard one, isn't it? Because actually, Karen, even though we're saying yes, the universe will present you with an opportunity, there's still work you need to do every day to look for that.
Yeah.
So Karen, you might be saying your habit might be that half an hour a day you're looking for opportunities, or you're journaling about how you feel when you're volunteering and you're actually being that helping hand. So you might have to put a little bit of work in that. Then, do you see what I mean? It's almost us doing a bit of work that will then allow the opportunity to come through.
Yeah, it's been great. And I've reflected as well over the past 2 weeks, when I've been on purpose, and, it's really happening because of situations going on really in the workplace, which has been, the focus in the last few weeks. And, saying goodbye to colleagues who you've worked with for, many years, just, they've made a choice and a decision, and, the world in which I'm working is changing dramatically and overnight, every night. But me being on purpose was being there for them, and, supporting the decision that they'd made, and, wishing them well. But interestingly enough, in my whole working life, I've never worked to be making friends. I've always really had a leader position. But of late, and the last 12-15 months presented different situations to me, and I feel like I've made some friends, and those are the colleagues that I was just mentioning. They're moving on for what, for different reasons, but we'll be friends. And I guess my nature and my life purpose, I'll continue using that with them in their futures.
Absolutely. And that's a lot of that's conditioning. So growing up from, our parents, it's well, you can't, mix work and pleasure. It has to be separate. So we get told by the world that we can't have friends at work. So actually you're just coming home and realizing that absolutely is available to you now, the fact that you can have both. But that's a little bit of conditioning, knowing what's ours and what we've inherited. Because that is sometimes something we learn, that we can't be our true self at work. There was a campaign recently, bring your whole self to work day. I loved that. Like, bring your whole self to work. It seems so alien, but we don't do it, do we? It's conditioned out of us. It's so crazy. I'm going to give you guys 1 more minute and I'll bring you back. I'll leave you.
Okay.
All right. Where am I going? I'm going here. Cool.
Career with my weaknesses, to try and prove to myself, because I am this masculine energy, that just because I'm not good at that, I'm gonna be really good at that.
Oh yeah, you are. I love this.
Yeah.
Just so much power here.
But
Go, Georgie. Yes, you are.
I mean it in a negative way though, Natalie, as in like, I am never going to be amazing at what I do as a job.
Okay.
I did it because it was a weakness of mine, and I thought I shouldn't have a weakness. And actually, I should probably play with my strengths more. Because
Yeah.
I don't want to be that average person that Jake Shetty talks about. I don't want to be average. I want to be really good. So why not be good at my strengths instead of?
Yeah. Oh my God, it's such a conditioning thing though, right? Isn't it? Like that it's drummed into us. Like, yes, you must succeed and work hard. And if it's easy, there's something recently someone said to me about like, why does success need to be hard? And I was like, yeah, that's so interesting. Like if things are on purpose in alignment, they should just feel easy. But there's something about the fact that no, it can't be right and like almost like I've earned it if it's not blood, sweat and tears present, you know?
Yeah. If it's easy, you're not working hard enough. You should be like dying. Yeah, exactly. It's
Which is beliefs, which is conditioning, which is a lot of stuff that we all take on. And I think once we can free ourselves of that, there's so much possibility, you know, in that, I think. And I think that's a massive lesson to come out of this, isn't it? And I was going to bring it back to the Dharma quiz and things like that around the strengths and weaknesses, because it is important for us to use that as a check-in challenge as well.
Yeah. So just saying that I'm probably off purpose quite a lot in my day-to-day life.
But Georgie, I think that's not a bad thing, because I think that's really good information, because that shows how much possibility there is to then get yourself back on purpose. If you said to me, either of you, I'm on purpose 24 hours a day, well, I'd say, well, I don't know how I can help you then. You know, like it's, you know, it's one of those where actually I think knowing when you're not and knowing that there's a little bit of work to do is, there's so much possibility from that place. So don't see that as a negative. I think let's get clear about maybe where you can start to bridge that gap though. So there'll be some situations where that's easier to bridge than others. Right, I'm going to give you guys 1 minute and then I'll bring you back.
Okay. We need to do,
Where am I going? Oh, how do I get out? Oh, awesome. Thank you guys. Sorry, I left you a bit longer than I think I said, but it's because there were some really, really awesome conversations happening there. So many light bulb moments. So yeah, thank you for just kind of being a little bit fluid with the timings here, but I think we'll be another kind of 5 minutes or so. But if anyone needs to jump off, then don't worry. Does anyone want to share anything that came up? You don't have to share here, but I'd love to be hearing some of those. You know, one thing that you might do this week to be on purpose, or give us an example of a time in the past week that you absolutely knew I was on purpose in that moment. And I think a few of you said like there's a lot of times I wasn't, and that's absolutely fine, because there's so much information there, because you've actually got a really good note to say, well, actually, I know I wasn't on purpose there. And actually that's the first step, to know when you are and you aren't, and then understand the differences.
Can I share something that I was sharing with Karen about something that I didn't even realize, but after you talking about how sometimes you can't even realize things, I was, gosh, yeah, I think I was. So, you know, my metaphor, but everything else that comes after the smile is what I would like to, I want to keep driving that message forward. One of my volunteering projects, I ended up taking a load of work for the team, delivering a project by last week, Thursday. And instead of doing my normal way of dealing with things where I would probably vent or bitch or be really harsh about everybody else not helping or speaking or doing anything, I actually did the opposite. I even got some criticism from some other team members to say, as a project lead, you need to single out some of these people and start talking to them and asking why aren't they pulling their weight. And I just felt like that's a very unfair thing to do. Everyone's got their problems, everyone's going through something. So as a collective group, I commended everyone for their efforts. Even though no one put in any effort, I was like, nope, we're a team, I'm commending you all.
That's so amazing.
And that was my smile to say, you know,
it's okay, I've got you. Like, it's all right that you've been busy, like, you know, and actually you're giving them permission to do the same for you one time that you might need some help, actually, because we all have these ebbs and flows, actually, don't we? So I really like that. That sets a tone for that to be quite a nice balanced relationship with boundaries, though, and the boundaries will be clear there. So next time it's ensuring that they respect that and then make that a bit more even for you. But I think that's a really nice example, isn't it?
Yeah, I really, I didn't even know I was doing it until we had this conversation. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I think that
a lot of it's subconscious, and this is why the first step is bringing it into our conscious thoughts and our conscious mindset, because initially if it stays in our subconscious, it's going to be hard to influence or use it to create any kind of change. And that's this first step in kind of really digging into this that's already there, but we're not necessarily aware of it, you know, through our kind of day-to-day thoughts, really. Thank you for sharing. That's a really good example. Anyone had any other thoughts around times in the last week or so that you were on purpose, or things that you think you might be able to do to bring yourself back on purpose when you're not?
So Georgie and I were chatting about mine, and I was saying that yesterday I was trying to do something for work, and I wasn't able to do it in the way that I wanted to do it because I had forgotten to look after myself, like self-care. And I was saying, I actually went to bed at, I think it was like 9 p.m. last night, and I didn't wake up till 7:30 this morning because I just really needed to sleep. But when I wasn't looking after myself, I wasn't able to be on purpose because I hadn't given myself the space to be the person that I normally am in order to help people in the way that I like to, or to feel good and help people feel good. So I wondered if maybe I might rethink my purpose slightly to try and incorporate that in there somehow, because that massively ties in with the whole reason I did the course, and the whole thing that I'm really, I want to be more of my purpose is kind of thinking about myself.
Yeah, you're at the heart of that.
Yeah.
It starts with you, doesn't it? And I think it's really nice. You've kind of been the perfect segue, actually, for me to. Got a weird light in here. I want to bring this back to our first program goals as well, and that's what you'll do next week. You're going to look back at your program goals from the beginning and actually like just look at the whole content and actually reanalyze some of those and realize, like, do I like them still? Do they still have a place? But the fact that Yasmin, you've brought us back to that is really powerful, because you came into that program with that intention. So this purpose statement needs to keep you grounded in that. And I think that might be a nice reflection exercise for your life purpose statement next week, to go back to your program goals and check and challenge it. It might be that a few of them you're like, nope, that's not me anymore. Or you might have one that you're like, that's absolutely tick, or not quite done the work on. That's where the next one will really help as well, because you'll look at the bits we haven't quite got to as well. But that's really helpful because it's got to bring us home. And I feel like for you, that's the bit that absolutely was taking you away from yourself, that kind of losing that self-care, wasn't it? So maybe that's, you know, a day a week, an hour a day, you know, for you, like specifically, what does that look like? Can you give me the days that you'll be doing it and what you'll be doing? Like, that's the level of detail that you need to honor that for yourself. I know that's really strong, but it's actually, you know, I think it's almost becoming non-negotiable that it doesn't happen, and getting so into a routine there that almost, yeah, it just becomes so grounded and rooted, really. And that's going to be quite hard, I think, for you because of the nature of your nature, but at the same time, it's absolutely doable.
It is. It definitely is doable.
Anyone else have oh, I think Karen has got a, oh yeah, no problem, Karen, thank you. Any other thoughts on kind of daily actions or daily kind of times that in the last week that you feel like you've had any moments or things that you're going to build into your week moving forward?
Yasmin and I were both talking about her idea about writing it in a gratitude diary as a sort of reflection, because we are similar quite a lot in many
Both
ways.
generators as well, that's important. Yeah.
And we like to bring joy and help others, and sometimes forget about ourselves, but actually reminding ourselves that we are bringing that joy to others fills us up, because we do it so naturally. Sometimes we smile, like Yasmin's smiling right now, you can see she's just a smiley, happy person, but sometimes don't reflect or give yourself credit for what you're actually doing naturally. So we're gonna like reflect every day on the nice things that we just did naturally during the day for others.
Wow. I think, you know, and that is so powerful, isn't it? Because actually you are doing those so naturally, but bringing them into your conscious thought will make you realize how much you really are kind of on purpose already. And that's a really simple but very effective tool, isn't it, actually? I love that. And I love that you two are able to kind of use that together, because we've got different personalities in the room here. And again, what I'm going to do is bring you back when we do go back to the program goals, talk a little bit back about Dharma again, and then the human design bit, and link all that back up as well, because different personalities, when we come to commitment and then ongoing and keeping some of these habits sustainable, we as different types of people need different support, because we're not all the same. So it's about us creating the action plan that's bespoke to our needs, rather than doing an action plan that we might kind of feel like we should put in place for ourselves, that actually isn't going to help us keep this work going. So it's about this journey not ending. It's actually just beginning here. It's just the fact that you're being your own kind of guide, with then a drop in, you know, we'll always kind of be here, you know, but actually you'll be kind of taking kind of more front and center seat of actually guiding or taking that, you know, that ownership in that direction. And this is what the action plan is around now. So we're going to be moving into that through initially program goals, re-looking at those, but also looking at a little bit of what our relationship to commitment looks like, because actually that tells us a lot about who we are and what we need to do to spot ourselves moving forward as well. Because again, we need different things because of our personality styles. And then we'll be moving through into kind of habits as well from there, because this is about sustainable change now, and actually how we bring some of this through in our day-to-day lives, rather than it being a lovely conversation, which it is, of course, but it's about some of this being kind of lasting change, really. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into that with you guys. We'll have 2 more weeks. We'll have commitment next week. We'll then talk a little bit about your action plan, and then we'll do another future self visualization, and then yeah, and then we'll literally kind of do a bit of a recap for the whole thing, really. But I can't actually believe we're 10, 11 weeks or something. Like, it's just mental. So yeah, and like I said, I just really appreciate you being my guinea pigs, because none of this I've done before in this way. So yeah, just really grateful for having this chance, really. And I will be asking you guys for so much feedback of like, what could have been different? Like, what did week 2 and week 3, you know, all of that, because actually that's really important moving forward. You know, you might even say, actually, I wanted to start with life purpose. You know, all that is so interesting if you think about it. There's no right or wrong with any of it, because we're all so different. But actually, yeah, I can't wait to start kind of getting some of that feedback from you. But I will let you guys go, because I have kept you longer. So have an amazing week. I have sent you an email just to book your second call. It's up to you whether you want to do it around before we finish, or whether you want to do it like in May, when actually you might need kind of a bit of a kick up the bum and a bit of accountability. So it's up to you how you want to use that. But I like the idea of using me to build your action plan around sustainable change, because it's a nice time to kind of like co-create that with someone. And that's why I kind of say in the next kind of after next week might be a nice time for you to kind of to get that in. But if you'd rather keep that for May, that's absolutely fine as well. And I know you, Rachel, will be sharing a little bit more detail, won't we, as well, about I'll get together too in coming weeks. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Any final thoughts? Any final questions? Nope. All good. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening, rest of your final few hours of the bank holiday.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.